So we wanted to have a chance to talk about a little bit about this really important concept that we talk about in all of our classes, all of our courses, all of our programs, pretty much with everybody we do one-to-one work with too, the brain states. And wanted to just give people, before they even have a chance to be in any of our classes, this sense of what we're talking about a little bit about these brain states.
Yeah.
So there's 3 of them, right?
Right.
You want to tell the folks at home?
The 3?
Yeah, how would, like...
Well, at the center, we look at 3 main networks in the brain. Survival, emotional, and executive. Mm-hmm. Do you want to break them down for us?
Sure. Survival is really just for staying alive. It's both a brain state and a neural network that is built for having us just do whatever we need to do to stay alive in this moment. And there's 4 main modes: fight, flight, freeze, or appease, which we don't hear about as often. Why don't you tell us about emotional brain now?
Well, when we are safe, there's no sense of threat, then we gain access to this emotional brain state. And it's in charge of emotions. So we experience emotions via neurochemicals. We process emotion. We have the experience of emotion. But most importantly, we also, from this state, check the environment to see if it's safe to share about feelings, either with ourselves or with others.
Right. So that's the emotional brain state and the emotional brain network that drives it. Then there's also the executive brain network we also talk about, and the brain state that goes with it, which is when we're like really switched on. We're able, we're fully capable, we're agile, we have our learning brain on, our thinking brain, our creative problem solving access, all of that kind of really performative, like where we want to be.
Best self, ultimate, living the dream, executive state.
Okay, so that's the setup. We have these states, they work the way they're designed to, but they also get kind of
effed up.
We get effed up. That's the technical term.
It's a scientific term. So the design is such that we're humming along in the executive state and we're getting things done and we're teaming up with people, etc. But if threat shows up in whatever form, we usually choose a predator, usually a grizzly bear. We talk about it in class.
We pick on grizzly bears here because we're from Montana.
If a bear shows up, that executive state is going to shut off. Because it does not aid our survival. It spends time in logic and compassion and thinking and cooperating and wondering and dreaming and all those things. If this grizzly bear wanted to eat us, if we're doing those things, we're giving that bear time to do so. Right.
So the example is like the executive brain response to the grizzly bear roar coming at you would be, I wonder if is that like a grizzly bear or is that like a black bear? When do these guys come out of hibernation?
Yeah, how are their numbers? How are they responding to climate change?
Yeah. Well, that's a great one, yes. And then, of course, if it's a desperate bear, it's a hungry bear, it's going to maul you and eat you.
You're just serving yourself up on a platter.
You were in your executive brain state trying to deal with it.
Yeah, so that shuts off immediately.
And the emotional brain too.
Also shuts off because it would be busy having feelings. That's its job. That's what it does. So whether it's a grizzly bear or something else, it's going to have feelings about it. So like, this was our dream vacation, Glacier Park, and we were going on the ultimate hike, but they shut the trail down because of this bear, and it's not fair, and the injustice of it all, and disappointment, and...
Or even, faced with the bear. Oh no, I'm gonna be eaten by a bear.
I don't want
to have to run away from the bear. I don't even know what to do with the bear when the bear shows up. Right. Full on emotional brain response rather than trying to stay alive.
If it's a predatory bear, then you are giving it time to eat you if you are entangled in the feelings about the bear. So that shuts off also instantaneously.
And we get shunted into very necessarily into a survival brain state to fight the bear or to run from the bear or to freeze up and play dead so the bear thinks that we're not worth eating, or to try to appease the bear, maybe throw some food from our backpack or some of our rations.
All the food you need for your backpacking trip, just give it to the bear because it's more important to survive this moment. We'll worry about the other part later.
And
that's how we stay alive.
Pretty much all 4 a better chance of staying alive than melting into the feelings about the bear attack or getting into an executive quandary about the nature of this bear.
And the reason that we care about this at all, like I wouldn't care about it at all, except that most of us, because of our upbringing, because of the environment our brain was formed within, we respond to feelings just like we respond to grizzly bears.
Right. So we had upsets when we were little, starting from infancy, right out of the womb. Our parents or caregivers didn't know what to do to support us in our upset well enough. So our brains got the idea that in these moments of upset, we were in physical danger. Not that, even if our parents weren't threatening, even if they were just not fully tuned in, or even if they were just trying to calm us down and not making room for the feelings, our nervous system gets the idea that the feelings themselves are dangerous. So we start to respond to them with survival reactivity instead of emotional brain processing.
That's the thing that people don't realize about children, is that their brains aren't developed until much, much later. And so they're missing that ability to process emotions on their own. We need a safe adult to help us with that. And if the safe adults are busy or bothered and they aren't able to help us with it, then that child brain has no choice but to respond to emotion from a survival state, because that state is developed, that's available. It's the only thing that's available. Right. So then if that happens enough times, 10,000 times in a childhood, then our brains develop to respond to emotion as adults. So here we are as these grown people who have all this wisdom and all these tools, but it doesn't matter if emotion shows up and that wiring is there, then fight, flight, freeze, or appease is also going to be present.
And so then, instead of the appropriate response to a bear, going into survival and surviving, we go to the appropriate response to a bear when someone's just feeling sadness or shame or anger around us, or when we're feeling those feelings. And then we try to fight out those feelings, or run from those feelings, or freeze up and play dead until those feelings pass, or get into appeasing someone else to try to have more of a sense of safety around these feelings.
Yeah, and the problem is that unless you know how, that happens, it happens for all of us.
All the time.
And unless you know how to work the levers to get out of that brain state, you end up just living life that way. And that survival state, it's good at those four things.
And really good at, and only good at, those four things.
But it's bad at everything else.
Pretty much every single other thing.
Bad at making money, bad at relationships, bad at parenting, bad at
health,
designing projects, bad at health or self-care or any of the things that actually make a life worth living. It's terrible at. It'll keep you alive, but it won't help you have the life that you actually want to be living. That's why we care about it.
Yeah. Yes. And in situations like a bear attack, our brain takes over and just throws us into survival because that's how we survive. But this kind of programming that we're talking about is what many of us are dealing with day in and day out, having us respond to emotional moments as though they were bear attacks, tiger attacks, whatever the predator of choice might be.
And there's real consequences to living life from a survival state. It's a high
energy output
state to run. It's really only meant to run for the 3 minutes it takes to get rid of the bear, but if we're running it day in, day out, it's really taxing. So that's why you see fatigue, body issues, all of this like wear and tear on the system, because it's running this like high octane network more than is good for us.
Also,
high blood pressure,
yeah,
all those
high
things.
Anxiety, depression, those are also related to that staying in that state of being amped up and vigilant and watching out for, or the opposite, depressed, frozen, waiting for the danger to pass kind of states. Even around just feelings, even around executive things too, for that matter, not just emotional things. So then we, like you're saying, we get stuck in this perpetual high output state and high arousal state, high reactivity state, which means, like you're saying, we're not able to put energy and attention and focus and creativity toward anything else that matters to us. But it also means that we're we're responding to our relationships and our other people as though they were predators, fighting with them, running from them, freezing up around them, or just trying to keep them pleased instead of actually having connection with them.
Yeah.
Which I think is a huge contributing factor to the real dearth of connection that we're experiencing these days.
And people will say, well, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do it? Why can't I have it? Why can't I
Get there, be what I want to be, show up all the way.
what's wrong with me? And we say there actually is nothing wrong with you. This is the way the system is meant to run in the face of a grizzly bear. So the issue then becomes, how do we retrain our brain to see feelings as feelings and not grizzly bears? Because that's really, if we can manage that, then we can have feelings, we move on through it, and we go back into the shiny version of ourselves and have all of the things that we want. That's really like the whole mission of the center, is to do that brain retraining so that we just get to have what we want. We get to have the lives that we want.
Yeah, and as you said, that's why we have the Center for Emotional Education, so that we can bring this learning, this way of being with ourselves, helping ourselves to navigate these brain states, whether it's in, the context of our intimate relationships, or the context of our boundaries, or the context of how we want to run our lives daily, or even the context of the work that we want to do. That's why we're here.
That's what